Uh, Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry I don't speak Chinese. Uh, I was born in Japan, and then my region was in the Chugoku-Chiho, which is the same character as China. Actually, I'm a Chugokujin, but unfortunately, I just speak Japanese and some English. So after I finished my English, so I wanted to start learning Chinese, but I have never had a chance to finish the language. So the language never finished, like Ruby. Okay. 2 months ago, so we had the 25th anniversary of Ruby. We celebrated the 25th anniversary of Ruby. So it was terrific. It was so wonderful, and the event was wonderful. And so many people attended to the event, and so celebrated the long history of the language. And it was February 24th, I mean. But how do you think define birthday of a programming language? In Wikipedia, so that people show the first appeared date, like according to Wikipedia, Ruby was first released in December 1995. So the version was Ruby 0.95. But yeah, it's not for me because I put it on the internet on that day. But, Ruby was there in my pocket. You know what I mean? So I was working for Ruby for more than 2 years back then. So that for me, Ruby had been already born. So how a software could be born? Software has no physical entity. It's kind of like a conceptual existence. So we don't touch software. We just touch our keyboards or mouse or something. So the Ruby's birthday is when Ruby became Ruby. It's kind of like a philosophical question. So I defined Ruby's birthday as the date when the concept Ruby was made. That means the concept? The concept was embodied by the name Ruby. So the naming matters in software. So the name of the methods, name of the variables, name of the concept are very important in the software development. So the date I named Ruby is the date Ruby was born. So we recognize the word by the name. So the name is directly related to the concept. Hence the date I named Ruby was the Ruby's birthday. It was February 24th, 1993. So she has just turned 25. Back then, we wanted to name it the language after jewels, the name of the jewel, because we had Pearl. I talked with my colleague about my new project. We are going to create my new programming language, but we need at least a code name for the project. So we discussed about the name of the jewels because I wanted to name it after the jewels, and the diamond, sapphire, or something. The most jewel names are so long and it's hard to type. It's not very suitable for the software names. Yeah. You don't want to type the sapphire every time you. So the two candidates left, Ruby or Coral. But the Ruby was shorter. Ruby was more beautiful and more precious. So I named it Ruby, only 4 letters, even shorter than Python. Afterwards, we found out some coincidences, like a birthstone. In the birthstone, the Pearl is the birthstone of June, and the Ruby is the birthstone of July. And then font sizes has names. The 5-point font has the name Pearl, and the 5.5 point named Ruby. So it's the sufficient name for the next Pearl. The next Pearl. The next Pearl was my primary goal back then, and then I somehow regret that I went too far. But I wanted the Ruby as useful as Perl, as strong as Perl. To be honest, we went too far, like some weird global variable names. But yeah, it is 25 years ago. And at present day, we are no next Perl. It's Perl 6. In fact, the Ruby is now some kind of the next to Python or following Python or something. Okay, I admit my lack of imagination. Yeah, it is quite difficult to predict the future. So that 20 years has passed in the history of Ruby. Did I foresee the current popularity? Of course not. So that back then, on the internet, back then we don't have web. So that actually there was web in Switzerland somewhere, but it's not popular. Very few people use that. And back then we had something named the net news. It was the internet. Then, so on the internet, net news, so we have tons of programming languages out there. So there maybe thousands of them. So that I expected my programming language could be one of them. So that some people got interested in my language, and then we having fun with developing together, like an open source. There's not open source back then, the free software way. Then, so that having enjoyed for a year or two, then the people gradually lose the interest in the language, and then my language would disappear gradually in the history of the internet. That was what I expected back then. But that didn't happen. Something happened. So that people found Ruby as the language of their choice, and they wrote many programs in my language. And they even write the web application frameworks. And then some years later, they created the something named Ruby on Rails. The web application framework come along with a very weird name. And and somehow that web application frameworks got so popular, then that it makes Ruby very popular. And then the people organize the conferences everywhere, Taiwan, Tokyo, Paris, London, San Francisco, or whatever. So that we had conference in so many places, and I didn't expect that. So it is quite difficult to predict the future. So not only for me, but difficult for everybody. That means it's okay to be irresponsible. So I can say anything about the future. So that everyone is going to be wrong, I can go wrong. So the Ruby after 25 years, the trend is the trend toward the future is the scalability. Everything is getting bigger. The data size, traffic size, program size, team size, everything getting bigger and bigger. And then we have to fight with these sizes and the complexity. So that we are going to create the new version of Ruby named Ruby 3 to fight against the future. So we have the 3 key major features in Ruby 3, which is the performance, concurrency, and the static analysis. For performance, so that no one complains about the faster Ruby. So yeah, Ruby has had known to be a slow language. Yeah, before 1.8, I created the interpreter, which is the tree walking interpreter, very primitive ones. And then mostly because I'm very interested in the design of the language, not the implementation of the interpreter. So I created a very simple interpreter. And then, but the more than 10 years ago, so the young graduate student came to the community, and he offered to create his own new virtual machine to Ruby. So there's a lot of that back then, 15 years ago. So there are a lot of attempts to create the new faster virtual machine to the Ruby language. But it's quite easy to create the fast virtual machine in the simple, the Ruby-like language or a subset of Ruby. But it's kind of like a 80-20 rules. The 80% of the Ruby can be implemented very easily, but the less 20% is quite difficult to implement. So we have to keep compatibility. We have a lot of Ruby users back then, so we have to keep compatibility as much as possible. So that among the handful of the attempts of the virtual machine creation, only one virtual machine left, which we called YAV, yet another virtual machine. A guy who in charge of the YAV is somewhere here, the Koichi. Raise your hands. There he is. He's the guy in charge of the YAV. So that we need a performance to fight with the scalability, especially for data size. Because YAV is fast. It's quite fast, and it's as fast as Python and PHP and other programming language in many aspects, but it's not enough because we don't beat them. So the concurrency. So the future, one of the most important aspect of the future is concurrency. So that's the reason behind we have the Ruby Elixir conference, now the Ruby conference. And we have tons of machines behind the cloud. We have many things that we have the multi-core in our laptop or mobile phones or everywhere. So we have tons of cores, tons of machines, so that the software will not be the mere single machine, simple software, but the system consisted by the many machines. So the concurrency is required fight with the mostly traffic size or the scalability. And the static analysis. So the recent popular modern programming language has static types, like say Go, the Rust, or Swift, or whatever, TypeScript. And those programming languages have static types, and which Ruby don't have. With static types, so we can find more errors in compile time, so that they can be more productive in a way, and that is good aspect. But at the same time, we might lose our, flexibility of the, say, duck typing, or maybe so we have to write down the type annotation, the variable declaration or something, so which Ruby doesn't have, and we like that kind of aspect of the language in most of the cases. So the performance concurrency and static analysis is the key to fight with the scalability required by the future. So for performance, some years ago, I proposed the slogan named Ruby 3x3, or 3 times 3. That means Ruby 3.0 will be 3 times faster than Ruby 2.0, which we released in year 2013. 3 times. It's not easy because we had worked for Ruby for last 20-something years to improve the performance, so that we have very few low-hanging fruit. So we improved the performance here and there. So we improved the garbage collectors. We improved the implementation of the internal hash tables. But it's not big enough to improve 3 times. But we need some goal. So especially ambitious goals, like President Kennedy did in 1963. He said, so that we go to the moon. We go to the moon in this decade, in 60s. And he's not an engineer. He's not a scientist. But he's the leader who declared that mankind should go to the moon in that decade. I'm a programmer, but mostly language designer. So I myself I don't think I could improve the Ruby virtual machine 3 times faster, because most of the detail of the virtual machine is due to him, not me. My interpreter was so slow. So, but the important thing is having ambitious goal. And yeah, when I first said that, so I thought I didn't believe I could do that actually, but the goal is pretty important, because a guy named Vladimir Makarov, who worked for Red Hat and who in charge for the internal of the GCC for a long time, came with the project named MJIT. He presented that is in RubyKaigi 2017. His MJIT stands for the method JIT, or JIT for MRI. That comes with the 2 parts. The RTL, which stands for the Register Transfer Language, and the MJIT is the framework to kick the GCC. Remember, he's the maintainer of the GCC. Kick the GCC to implement the JIT compiler, just-in-time compiler. He used the traditional GCC clone to compile the generated C file, which is kind of silly. But by using the worker threads and the simplified header files, so that he makes realistic. So he implemented the new virtual machine that runs the RTL instead of the YAV vert code, and then the just-in-time compiler to generate the native code. Then his attempt was so terrific, wonderful, and then yeah, actually the JIT compiler runs some benchmarks 3 to 6 times faster. 3 to 6 times faster. Okay, they are only micro benchmarks, but it's pretty, helpful. But we had one big problem. So replacing the virtual machine and adding JIT compiler is the huge jump. So it is quite hard to be stable. Remember that it's quite easy to implement the subset of Ruby, fast subset of Ruby, but to implement a fully compatible virtual machine is the very tough task. Only Koichi did that. So Vlad tried to recreate the new compatible virtual machine, and he could not do that until in the short amount of time. Maybe he could do that in the future, but not now. The compatibility is the biggest obstacle of making a big change. So it is a problem. So Takashi Kokubun, who is here, somewhere around here. Yeah, there. This is quite a nice conference. So he created the new MJIT, which compiles based on YAV and the compiling framework of MJIT. It's not as fast as the first version of MJIT, but it works better. And then Vlad did not give up. So he's working on the new version of MJIT, which translated the YAV bytecode to RTL, then compile RTL into C using the MJIT framework. Anyway, so Takashi's version is already included in the trunk, so that we will see the JIT compiler in Ruby 2.6 that will be released in this Christmas. I mean, next Christmas. You can try it with --JIT, so that by adding this option, so that you can JIT your software. At least you can try. So that this is the first prototype, so that I don't make any promises. I don't think it would not run your software 3 times faster. JIT is not panacea, so that it improves the CPU intensive tasks. If the bottleneck is not CPU, don't expect too much. It's improved the micro benchmarks pretty well, because most of the micro benchmarks are very, very CPU intensive, like say, recursive calls. But many software, especially web software, the bottleneck is the I/O, so the network and database. So that you don't expect that kind of software can be improved 3 times faster by the JIT compiler. But anyway, for JIT can improve your CPU intensive works very dramatically. Well, a concurrency. We have multi-core, many-core in our machines, so that we have a lot of multitasking. So that we have to handle so many traffics, so that we have Node.js. that's wonderful. But remember that's single-threaded, so it uses only one core. And then to use the multi-cores, so Elixir L1 is the better. So the Elixir L1 creates the native core as many native threads as the core in your computer. So using the multi-process, the L1 process. But compared to the Beam, the Alarm virtual machine, we have the GIL, the global interpreter lock. So that means only one core works at the one time. So that we can use a single core like Node.js does. It's safer because you can easily remove the GIL by modifying the Ruby virtual machine. It's open source. But I'm pretty sure your multi-thread program will crash. Yeah, threading hard. So it's slower, but it's much safer. So the mere mortal can program multi-thread, can do the multi-thread programming in Ruby. So the GIL is for the safety. So we have two ideas. So there is some two types of the software that requires the concurrency. So one is IO-intensive tasks, like the Node.js handles. So we are going to address that by maybe, I'm not going to make any promise here, but we have a proposal named AutoFiver. We are going to change the name, I'm sure, but the current name is AutoFiver. The AutoFiver is a kind of the Fiverr which switch context in the I/O, so that you can create fivers, and in the I/O blocking, in the I/O blockings, so that we can context the the tasks, so that we can run as fast as Node. And then the guild, which is the kind of the CPU intensive tasks. The guild is, imagine kind of the web workers in JavaScript. So that it totally isolated space of the task. So the Koichi is in charge of this idea. So in Ruby 3, we can handle the multi-core using the separated object space. And then I think we can go even farther. So the distributed programming can be possible, so that we can communicate with the guild in another process, another machines, or another data center, or another cloud. So that we have, recently we have the idea of the FaaS, which stands for the function as a service, like Amazon Lambda. So the highly distributed task. So this is the one aspect of the future of the programming. So based on the guilds and the more concurrent abstraction, we can do that kind of highly distributed concurrent systems can be written in Ruby. That is my dream. Static analysis. The Ruby is actually optimized to small teams. The concise and abstract and flexible aspect of the language can be benefit those kinds of small teams. But as the team size and the program size grow, the things can be more and more complex. And then you have to separate the modules or the part of the software then you have to fix that kind of the API spec. Then in that case, so the static typing of the other languages, like the modern language, can be better. The Ruby on Rails is dramatically ease the development by providing web abstraction. It's the abstract view of web development. So I can say the Ruby on Rails is the DSL, domain-specific language for the web application. So abstraction is the key. As team get bigger, as the code get bigger, it'd be harder to maintain. So the people want static typing, but I don't like it. Mostly because it's not dry. If a program works without types, what? I forget that slash. We should be able to omit them. By the way, I don't like tests. It's not dry either. But we haven't invented the way to omit software tests. So I have to write tests. Types. Yukihiro Matsumoto, who must be here, there. He challenged static type information in Ruby in his PhD paper, and he hit terrific work. Yeah, and he proved it's nearly impossible. After graduating, he tried twice and failed. So his new challenge is named Steve. He's a speaker here, but he's not going to talk about Steve. So if you're interested in Steve and some other type analysis of Ruby, so catch him. Steve does not infer types most of the cases. So Steve requires type description file. Imagine .d.ts file for TypeScript. So the Steve check type integrity. There's four ways. No, I was wrong. This is old version. There's 2 ways to provide the type description in Steve. Type description file and the comments. You can add the comments to say what type of the variable or something like that. I hate that actually, but Steve does that. Okay, I'm not fully satisfied with it because type annotation comments are so ugly. So I believe the future source of the type information can be the handwritten type description file or extraction from YAR documents and or runtime type aggregation. So you run your test or your sample software with the correct argument. So aggregating those kind of the runtime type information, so you can use that kind of type information for next time you compile the file. Then we can do some kind of the type inference for the most simple cases. So Ruby 3 will have the MZ for performance and the guild and out fiber for concurrency and the static analysis for steep. That was our attempt to improve Ruby for the future, especially for scalability. For detail, don't ask me. I'm the general leader of the language. And for the MJIT for Takashi Kokubun, and he's going to talk about the MJIT here. And the guild for Koichi, and he's going to talk about the guild here. And Steve for Sotaro Matsumoto. Yeah, you may not know the Matsumoto is a pretty common name, so we are not relatives, no brothers. And if you're interested in Ruby in data science, ask Kenta Murata. who is going to organize the workshop tomorrow. What a wonderful conference. We have major key players in core contributors. So we are going to have the Ruby 3, and then with continuous evolution. Unlike the before, we are going to make a big gap. So for Ruby community, we had big gap between 1.8 and 1.9 because we have to replace the virtual machine, and we wanted to support the multilingualization, especially Unicode. So for that reason, we have to make big breaking changes. But after 1.8 and after 1.9, I mean, we had some kind of the community division for, say, 5 to 7 years. So that is kind of the tragedy, because we core team working on the newer version of Ruby, but some part of the community stays on top of the old version, which does not evolve, which does not be improved. So for that reason, we are not going to make the big breaking change in Ruby 3. We just added new functionality features in Ruby 2. So Ruby 2.6 will have the JIT compiler integrated. Or maybe Ruby 2.7 will come with the guild built in, or maybe Ruby 2.8 or somewhere, so that the Ruby ships with the newer version of Steep or something, or with the static analysis. So and we name it Ruby 3. It's just a level model, not a big change. We are not going to have that kind of the breaking change in the major version. Technology comes and go, so you may feel Ruby become old. Yeah, it's old. 25 is the old as a software. But with continuous evolution, we will become hot again in the future. So that when we have the language 3 times faster than the previous version, it is quite hot. And when we have the language, we can handle we can find more bugs in compile time so that we can be more productive. That language is pretty hot. So our goal is to help us accomplish great things with simple Ruby code. Simpler, safer, more enjoyable. So that is our goal. The Intel company has some kind of slogan that says the only paranoid survives. I'd rather be a paranoid to survive. So new language came in. So, Go, Rust, Python. Python is not a new language, but many new languages came in. And then we will do everything to survive. So Ruby is a good language, I admit. Yeah, that's because we are here. And then, some language stopped evolutions and gradually disappearing. Like language name starts from F or C. So I don't want to see my language would disappear. So we will do everything to survive, to keep providing values. The survival is not our primary goal. To providing value is our goal. I want to keep providing values by Ruby to the world. And then especially, it's pretty important to make programming fun again. Thank you.
For Master Matz-san, I know we all have a lot of questions for him, but before that, we gonna have a sponsor talk. So let's have honor speed Ash. Matz-san.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm going.
So after Ash's presentation for honor speed, and then we're gonna have Matz-san back on the stage and for QA section. Okay.
Wait. Hello. Hi. Okay. First, I want to say sorry for all the foreign attendees. Because of limit of time, so I will speak Chinese. But I think you'll get what I say. 好，那我们现在开始讲中文了，不然时间不够用。好，那首先感谢 Matz 刚刚精彩的演讲。那我知道大家都很期待等一下的 Q&A。那可是，在 Q&A 之前，我们还是要打一个广告，就是请大家给我们点时间。那先跟大家说好，我是 H。那我现在在 Untitled 台湾担任那个 Backend Engineering Manager。那这一次由我来跟大家介绍一下我们公司。很荣幸，等一下。很荣幸 Untitled 这一次能够成为今年的 RubyElixirConf 台湾2018年的 Ruby 级赞助商。那为什么我们公司要赞助 RubyConf 呢？其实 Untitled 从创业一开始就是使用 Ruby 和 Rails 在开发，那一直到现在都是。那当然，其实我们有很多的子系统，现在有些是用 Rails， 有些不是。不过，我觉得你可以说 Untitled 是一家热爱 Ruby 以及 Ruby 社群的公司。所以这也是为什么我们要赞助这一次的大会，希望能够回馈给社群。那如果你没有听过或是没有使用过 Untitled， 我简短跟各位介绍一下。我们是亚洲最大的生鲜还有熟食的代购服务商。透过手机，你可以轻松的下单，那货品会直接送到你家，那绝对是忙碌的现代人的生活好管家。当然，我们有一些其他服务，不过目前最主要、最大宗服务就是这2项。我们目前在全亚洲一共8个国家有做营运。那我们公司的愿景呢，是成为最方便、全世界最方便的这个 Service Marketplace。那除了为现代人解决生活上的一些杂事还有问题之外呢，也希望为社会能够带来正面的影响力。好，我们现在谈一下在 Untitled 工作是怎么样一个体验。首先，你打造产品直接面对全东亚8个国家的用户。那想想看，有这么多的用户每天在使用你所写的程式码，其实是一件非常有成就感的事。那再来是呢，我们在4个国家都设有研发中心，分别是台湾、新加坡、越南还有印尼。那其实会常常有机会跟各个国家的工程师、PM 或者 Designer 一起合作、一起协作、交流。那这也是很棒的一个经验。不可讳言的是，Untitled是一家成长的非常快的公司。那如何在快速成长中又要快速的开火，这是一个非常重要的课题。那我们现在采取的是 Squad Framework， 也就是根据小专案或者是小 feature 去组成一个最小的战斗单位。那每个小队都是往自己的目标就是专心的前进。那这样一来，既可以快速的移动，又可以就是不会丧失规模经济的优势。 所以如果你对这样的组织结构有兴趣，或者是你喜欢就是 move fast、grow fast 这样子的环境或挑战，那我想 RNP 会是很适合你的地方。好，那我们现在在诚征资深的 Rails 工程师以及 Golang 工程师。那刚才 HR 还有交代，就是我们也有征 Front-end 和 React Native。那如果你对这些职缺有兴趣，或者是你对我们公司工作有任何的兴趣或者问题，欢迎写信给我，或者是直接跟我聊。那我们在外面有摊位，有准备各式各样的活动，还有纪念品，欢迎大家到摊位上跟我们交流聊天。谢谢各位。
那我们再次谢谢 OnSpeed 这次为我们当到我们的 Ruby sponsor。那现在开放我们的那个 Q&A 时间，那大家的 intercom 在旁边的那一个麦克风呢，你可以按一下，按一下之后呢，你就可以讲话了。Okay, nobody understood what I was saying. Okay, anyway, so if you want to ask a question, you just press the button next to you on the intercom, and then you can speak to the microphone. And now let's have Master Matz back on the stage. A round of applause. Okay, let's start QA session. Anybody got any question about Ruby 3? Okay, the gentleman over there. Yeah, just press the button.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, so a question regarding performance. So one thing that Ruby already has is amazingly low startup time. Is this something you're willing to sacrifice for better runtime performance?
Not because JIT is the runtime, the gradually compiles into the native code, so that the methods that runs only the few times that is run by the current virtual machine. So the startup times and startup times will not be sacrificed because of the Ruby was born as a scripting language, so that many Ruby programs are very short and short lifetime. So that by sacrificing the startup type like a JVM, so that it is not usable in the scripting. So that I don't want that kind of things.
Thank you.
Okay, and the gentleman at the back, please.
Hi, Matz. Oh.
Wave your hand. Okay, here you are.
No, we cannot hear you. Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can
okay,
hear
sorry.
you now.
I'm a software guy, not a hardware guy, so I can't do with the switches. Anyway, the method missing feature of Ruby is one of the features that I think is most innovative, and I found it very useful. I'm kind of curious how the idea came to you to provide it, and does it exist in any other languages? I don't know of any other languages that have it.
Method missing is not my original idea. It's taken from the language named the Smalltalk. Oh. Smalltalk has the method named does not respond, which is corresponding to that method missing, and the common Lisp object systems, which is the object-oriented programming systems for the common Lisp language, has also this feature. I don't remember the name of the feature, but the method, I think missing method or something. So the name was taken from the Lisp. So those two languages has the similar idea and the predecessor of the Ruby.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, Matz. I'm going to talk about some Ruby one-liner at this conference. So I'm curious about that. You say the Perl stuffs are your biggest regret. Mm-hmm. So do you have any plan to remove or deprecate them in the future?
I might remove some of the Perl, the variable taken from Perl. For example, the dollar comma and then dollar semicolon, which you don't know. So that some Perl inherited variables, no one used that, and then no one knows how to use that, and they are a very big obstacle to optimize the method. So that I don't remember Ruby 2.5 or 2.6, we are going to make a warning if you use those variables. But not all, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any more questions? Last question. No? Are you sure? Matsu-san, do you have any questions to the audience?
Okay, how many of you are Elixir programmer? Oh, great. How many of you both? You do both? How many of you do only Elixir? Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's give a round of applause for Matsu-san.